Today in my presentation, I'll discuss some basic and practical aspects of insulin injection therapy. So we'll start with the presentation. So insulin is a polypeptide hormone which is secreted by beta cells of the pancreas. It is anabolic in nature and it has a profound influence on the metabolism of carbohydrate, proteins and fats. When we talk about the release of insulin from the pancreatic cells, it happens in two forms. One is the basal secretion and the other is the mealtime increment. This basal secretion is the background secretion which is released to utilize glucose which is produced by the liver, and it helps in maintaining the glucose levels in between the meals. Apart from this, the mealtime increments helps to cover the sharp spikes of the glucose post meals, and the amount of mealtime insulin released is directly proportional to the meals. So in the body, plasma glucose reaches to the maximum level in 30 to 60 minutes and then comes back to the basal level within 2 hours. So insulin also rises in the same manner and comes back to the basal level. So this sharp rise in insulin helps to utilize the nutrients from the meals, and the dip to the basal level helps controlling hypoglycemic incidences in between the meals. Coming to types of insulins. Insulins can be divided into different types depending on the duration of action. Here, ultra rapid acting insulin, rapid acting analogs and regular insulins form the mealtime insulins, and NPH and long acting insulins are the basal insulins. Now, because mealtime insulins are directly related to the meal, so it is very important to take them at the right time. And time of taking mealtime insulin is directly linked to the onset time of the insulin. For ultra rapid acting insulins, they can be taken before the meals, immediately before the meals, or up to 20 minutes from the meals. But for taking rapid acting insulin, it should be taken into account that it should be taken at least 10 to 15 minutes before the meals. And the regular acting insulin should be taken at least 30 minutes before the meals, because these time gaps are very important as they influence the action of insulin. And when coming to basal insulins, usually they are taken at a fixed time, but introduction of the newer long-acting analogs have given more coverage and some flexibility in the timing of the basal insulin. Now, talking about the regimen, insulin regimens can be divided into three types. First is the conventional regimen, wherein the insulin is given before breakfast and before dinner. Here, rapid acting or regular insulins are mixed with intermediate acting insulin to be given twice a day, or pre-meal mixed insulin can be used. These conventional regimens, because they do not mimic the natural release of insulin, so that's why they are not the preferred option. Coming back to the next regimen, which is the basal bolus regimen or multiple subcutaneous injections. Here, the basal cover is provided by the long-acting analogs or NPH, which can be given once or twice in a day, and the mealtime boluses in the form of short-acting or regular-acting insulins, which can be given 3 to 4 times in a day, depending on the meals and the snack pattern. Now, the third regimen which is commonly used is continuous subcutaneous insulin infusion. This is the most physiological, and this regimen has a lot of flexibility. Here, continuous infusion of rapid acting insulin is given with the help of insulin pump and the infusion set. Here, the rapid acting insulin is given at the basal rate, which can vary at different time zones of the day, and the prandial or correction boluses of insulin are taken pre-imposed on the basal rate. Here, analogs are preferred over the regular insulin in this regimen. Now, which regimen to choose for any person will depend on few factors like age of the person, then duration of diabetes, then meal timings, what is the pattern of eating for that person, and school timings of the kids. What is the school timing? When do they have the lunch? Their socioeconomic status and education and awareness level of the patient. Now, insulin can be delivered through different devices. It can be delivered through syringes or pens or insulin pump. In this presentation, I'll mainly focus on delivery of insulin through syringes and pens. Now, coming to a few points which have to be kept in mind before injecting insulin or while injecting insulin. First one is, while purchasing insulin, patients should always be educated or counseled to note few things. First, they should note the name, or they should read the name or tally the name of the insulin with the name written on the prescription. They should also check the appearance of insulin for any discoloration or any lumps which are present in the vials or the cartridges. Also, the expiry date of insulin should be checked, which is written on the vial, cartridges or pen. It should be noted that insulin should not be taken beyond the expiry date. Now, coming to storage. Once purchased, it is important to store insulin at the right temperature. If insulin is not in active use, it can be stored in refrigerator at 2 to 8 degrees centigrade. See to it that it should not be frozen or kept near chill tray or freezer. Also, while keeping insulin into the refrigerator, it is preferred or it is advisable that it can be kept in the plastic box and can be kept where usually vegetables are kept, rather than keep it into the door of the fridge. Then insulin which is in active use can be kept at room temperature up to 25 to 30 degrees centigrade for approximately a month, or as mentioned by the manufacturer. It is important to avoid extreme temperatures or exposure of insulin to extreme temperatures like direct sunlight. It should not be kept in parked cars or on top of any electrical appliances or in the kitchen. While traveling, it is important to carry insulin in a safe manner. So if the traveling on surface and outside temperature is more than 30 degrees centigrade, then it is safe to carry insulin in cool pouches or gel pouches, or it can be carried in thermos also. During air travels, insulin should never be kept in the check-in baggage. It should always be carried to the cabin in the handbag. Now coming to injection sites, where all we can inject insulin. So there are 4 sites wherein insulin can be injected. The first one is the abdomen. So after leaving 2.5 centimeter diameter of the periumbilical area, the entire abdomen can be used for insulin injection. The second area is thigh, wherein the front and the lateral part of thigh can be used for insulin injection. And the third area is the arms. So back side of the arm should be used for the insulin injection. The area below the insertion line of deltoid and above 3 to 4 fingers above the elbow should be used for injecting insulin. And in buttocks, the outer and upper and outer quadrant of the buttock should be used for injecting insulin. Now, just by injecting insulin in the right place doesn't solve the purpose, because using that right place is also very important in a right manner. Because if insulin is injected at a smaller area, it can lead to lump formation and that can affect the absorption of insulin. That's why proper rotation technique plays a very important role. So many different methods can be used for rotating the insulin injection sites. Here I am discussing 2 simple methods. So in the first method, what can we do? We can divide the body into 2 halves, the left side of the body and the right side of the body. And for example, we can start from the right side of the body using right arm, right thigh, right buttock and right side of the abdomen for first 7 to 15 days. And then it can be switched on to the left side of the body. But while rotating in this manner, it should be noted that every or each area should be used properly, or the wider area should be used for injecting insulin. In the second method, each area of the insulin injection can be divided into quadrants or halves, and each half or quadrant can be used for 7 days. While using that quadrant or half for 7 days, it should be noted that the area should be used in a similar manner, either the clockwise direction or the movement should be in anti-clockwise direction. And between each shot of insulin, at least 1 to 2 centimeter gap should be kept. So, apart from this, many a times it is required to lift the skin to inject insulin, usually when the length of the needle and the skin surface doesn't match, or needles are longer than the skin surface. But during lifting the skin, again, the whole hand should not be used. All the 4 fingers should not be used. Only the help of the thumb and the index finger should be taken. If required, the middle finger to lift the skin, and wider area should be lifted, and it should not be pinched too hard. So the pinch also should not be very tight. And usage of whole hand can lead to muscle pulling off the muscle and intramuscular injection. That's why it should be avoided. Now, how to inject insulin, or how to fill insulin into the syringes, and how to mix the insulin into the syringes, and how to use insulin pen, we'll see through videos. So in this video, because the voice was not getting recorded, so I'll give the voiceover to the video. So I really apologize for any inconvenience, but I will try my best to match with the voice of the video. So in this video, we'll see how to mix insulin into the syringe and how to mix. To fill insulin into the syringe, it is important to match the concentration of the vial with the concentration of the syringe. If the vial is of 40 IU per ml, then use 40 U syringe. But if the vial is of 100 IU per ml, then use 100 U syringe along with that. So for many insulins, vials are not available. For them, we use cartridges, and these cartridges are of 100 IU per ml. So with these cartridges, use 100 U syringe. Now, if you have to fill a milky or cloudy insulin into the syringe, so first roll the vial in between the palms for 20 times slowly. Please keep in mind not to vigorously shake the vial to mix the insulin. Now, suppose before filling the insulin, choose the vial and wipe the top of the vial with the alcohol swab and let it dry. Now, take the right syringe with the right concentration and fill the air into the syringe equivalent to the amount of insulin to be filled. Suppose if I have to take 10 units, then I'll fill 10 units of air into the syringe and insert the syringe on the rubber top and push the air into the vial. Now invert the vial or turn it upside down and pull insulin into the syringe. If you see any air bubble, then push the insulin back into the vial and again refill the syringe till the time it is filled perfectly. Now we have filled the insulin into the syringe and this syringe is ready to be used. Now we'll see how to mix two insulins into the same syringe. So this process is used to mix regular or rapid acting insulin with the intermediate or NPH insulin. Here, long acting analogs are not used in this process. Also, before filling into the insulin into the syringe, it is important to match the concentration of the vial with the concentration of the syringe. So, if the vials, both the vials are of 40 IU per ml, then use 40 U syringe along with the vials. Now, the first step would be to roll the vial into the palms slowly for 20 times. Then we'll wipe the top portion of the vial with the alcohol swab and let it dry. Now we'll fill the air into the syringe equivalent to the amount of the NPH insulin. Suppose we have to inject or we have to fill 10 units of NPH insulin, then fill 10 units of air into the syringe and insert the syringe into the vial and push the air into the vial and remove the syringe. Here in this stage, we are not filling insulin into the syringe, we have just inserted the air. Now we'll fill the air equivalent to the amount of the clear or regular insulin into the syringe. If suppose we have to fill 5 units, then we'll fill 5 units of air into the syringe. Insert the air into the vial of the clear insulin and now turn the vial upside down and fill insulin into the syringe. Here I am filling 5 units of insulin. If you see any air bubble, similarly, then push the insulin back to the vial and again refill it till the time there is no bubble. And here I am filling 5 units. So now it's time to fill the NPH insulin. Insert the syringe into the vial. See to it that this regular insulin doesn't enter into the vial of NPH, and then turn the vial upside down and fill the NPH insulin. As we filled 10 units of air here, so we'll fill 10 units of NPH insulin into the syringe. Now remove the syringe and this syringe is ready to use. While mixing insulin into the syringe, always keep in mind clear first and then cloudy. Now we'll move towards our next video, wherein we'll see how to inject insulin through insulin pens. So how to use insulin pens? Different insulin pens are available for different insulins. So first we'll see parts of insulin pens. First part is the dialer. From here we set the dose. This is the cartridge wherein insulin is filled, and here we fix the needle. So to fix the needle, remove the lower cover and put the needle vertically on the pen and rotate it in clockwise direction till it is fixed properly. Remove the outer cap and remove the inner cap. This is the needle. Now before injecting insulin, it is important to prime the pen. To prime the pen, first set 2 units of insulin while rotating the dialer to the clockwise direction. See to it that the dose which is set comes in front of the white arrow. Then put the pen facing with needle facing upward and tap it slowly. And then press the plunger till the time you see the drops coming out. Now how to inject the dose? First, roll the pen within the palms. If the insulin is cloudy, then set the desired dose and choose the area where you have to inject the insulin. If choosing abdomen, then leave 2.5 centimeter gap from the navel, and with the help of thumb and hold the pen in the thumbs up position here and inject insulin into the skin surface. So press the plunger fully. It is important to hold the pen for 10 seconds here while injecting insulin through pen so that entire dose enter into the skin. And then remove the pen and leave the skin. So now we'll move to our slides. So this slide shows the picture of the 40U and 100U syringe. Now we'll move towards the needle disposal. So ideally the manufacturers say that needles should be used only once, as repeated use of needle can cause blockage or it can increase the chances of bruising or lipodystrophy, and also loss of sterility of needles increases the chance of infection. And while disposing the needles, it is very important to be noted that needles should not be disposed directly into the dustbin. It should be kept in a hard puncture-proof plastic bottle, and once the bottle is 3/4 filled, then it should be sealed and then disposed of. And there are some, now we'll discuss some factors which can affect the absorption of insulin, as different insulin injection sites have different rate of absorption. So it is important to rotate the sites properly and not to inject randomly insulin to any of the sites. Then there are some factors which increases the absorption rate, like just taking hot bath immediately after injecting insulin, or massaging the area where the insulin is injected, or exercising immediately after probably injecting insulin on the thigh, or any kind of intramuscular injection. So these things should be avoided. And there are certain factors which decreases the absorption insulin, like taking large volume of insulin at one go, or injecting on the damaged or unhealthy tissues. So that has to be taken care of. Also, people should be advised not to inject insulin through clothes. Now we'll discuss some common issues which arise while injecting insulin. So first very common issue is formation of lipodystrophies. So one is the formation of insulin-induced lipohypertrophy, wherein a thick, soft to firm swelling develops on the skin surface. And the other is the insulin-induced lipoatrophy, wherein a depressed area with the loss of subcutaneous fat is developed on the injection site. So these problems usually arise because of the repeated trauma of the insulin injection site because of continuous injections of insulin. And this tend to reduce the absorption rate of the insulin. To prevent this, it is important to palpate or to inspect the site properly, and patients should be educated to how to palpate or how to inspect the site and use the wider areas for insulin injection. Other issues which might arise are the bleeding and bruising, which can be sought out by using the shorter needles and not to use needles, by not using needles multiple times. Air bubble formation is also very common in pens. So we can avoid this by not keeping the pens with the needles on them. Also, patients should be well educated to check the air bubbles before injecting the insulin, and They should be told to bring the insulin devices to the clinic every time they visit, so that the healthcare practitioner or the educators can check the insulin pens for the air bubble. Also, the loss of insulin potency is also noticed many a times because of not storing insulin in the right temperature. So patients should be taught not to store too much of insulin in the refrigerator, and they should be told to mention the date of the opening of the vial or the cartridges on the sugar monitoring chart, so that if any such incidences happen, it can be tallied, because there can be a problem in the storage chain at the retailer level also. Now, many a times we see a lot of unpredictable hypo and hyperglycemic incidences, and whenever these things are visible on the chart, the focus directly goes on the meal and the activity pattern of the child or the person. But it has to be taken into account that if devices are not used properly, or if insulin is not injected properly, then it can also contribute to unpredictable fluctuations. So at that time, the insulin delivery devices should be checked. If the patient is using syringe, then the concentration of the vial should be matched with the concentration of the syringe. It should be checked that the pen doesn't have pen is not having the air bubble. Insulin flow from the pen also should be checked, and the patient insulin injection technique should be reviewed at that time. And also, it should be checked that when the vial or cartridges was changed. Also, injection sites needs to be inspected properly at this point of time, and how they are rotating the injection sites should be reviewed at this time. They should also be asked about when they are injecting insulin, to check the insulin mealtime gaps of the patients, so whether they are injecting insulin at the right time or not. So insulin injection therapy plays a very important role in stabilizing the sugar levels. So if not given at the right time, the best choice of regimen can also not give the best result. So that is why it is very important to take care of these basic issues also, because they have a profound influence on sugar pattern. So that was all about my presentation, and thanks a lot.